All right. Well, thank you to those who have joined. I'm Carly Corlett. I'm the director of our population health consulting team. We have Clay and Rebecca as well. Rebecca's actually going to kick off the start of the presentation. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to chime in the chat box, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them. And then if not, of course, we'll be able to send a follow-up. But with that said, we're going to switch it over to Rebecca.
Perfect. Thanks, Carly, so much. And thanks everyone for joining this morning. We're excited to take you on a little tour of our annual Total Rewards report. So the session is called Total Rewards Uncovered. And on the next slide, if Carly will click there, we have a QR code to download this year's annual Total Rewards report. So if you're not familiar with the report and this is new to you, this is something that we at GBS put out each year. It has 3 sections: benefits landscape, employer priorities, bending the curve. So we're really trying to pull, there's a lot of, bodies out there who do great research and surveys. And so we're really pulling from those best in class resources and putting together what we think you as employer groups need to know, what's most relevant to you in your practice. If you'll click to the next slide, Carly. Something that kind of sets our report apart, we believe, is that the people who are determining what to include in the report are our GBS subject matter experts. So if you're familiar with GBS, hopefully you know many of these faces, and they are looking through, seeing what's new in kind of their realm and pulling relevant research and notable innovative strategies that we are sharing here in this report. So today, as Carly mentioned, she's the director of population health consulting. So she will be joining to share some of her sections. And then Clay, who is our director of total rewards consulting, will also be sharing some commentary on some of his sections that he pulled into the report. Our goal is to just kind of give you a high level overview or a taste or flavor of what you see and or will see in this report. So, as we won't kind of dive into these, but these are just kind of examples, what are the strategies for the next 3 to 5 years? Or on the next slide, medical cost trends. So, pulling from PwC Health Research Institute. So you can get a flavor for some of the data that we're including, or government underpayments shift increasing costs to employers. So all of these things are in there to kind of give you a flavor of, the landscape. What are employers thinking about? What should you be thinking about as an employer? And then also that last section, or what are some bending the curve, what are some innovative ideas that you might consider? So with that introduction, I will kick it over to Carly.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you all for joining today. I'm really excited to talk about a portion within the Total Rewards report, which covers our population health, but more specifically, our wellness trends that we're seeing across the nation. So within the Total Rewards report, if you missed the QR code at the beginning to download the Total Rewards report, there is one at the end as well. But you'll find within the report, under our population health umbrella, we really cover a handful of things. Our medical director, Dr. Vinnick, provides insight on medical trends. Our pharmacist, Joe Tooley, discusses what trends we're seeing in the pharmacy realm. Our director of behavioral health touches on behavioral health trends and mental health trends within the workplace. And then today, I more specifically am speaking to what wellness trends we're seeing in the industry and what trends have kind of evolved over the last handful of years and what we'll plan to see. So really, we have had over the years more and more requests for health and well-being programs. And health and well-being programs really can be anywhere from, I'll actually go to the next slide. Health and well-being programs can really be anywhere from entry level, meaning utilizing canned resources like our resources that we have in-house, like our Healthy Habits monthly materials. It could be our challenges, our mini challenges, just utilizing the resources that you have, all the way to more robust programs like investing in a third-party platform solution like our Personify Health platform we have. Maybe you find that you have high MSK spend within your population. So investing in an MSK vendor like a Hinge or a Sword Health could be a solution for you. Or maybe it could be that you have a young demographic with lots of female, whether it's within your lots of females within your organization, whether it's through your spouses or dependents or through employees, and you recognize that you need some maternal or postpartum support. Whatever that is, all of that, whatever your wellness goals are, all of that falls within the wellness umbrella. Now, what's interesting to find on this graph here, which is pulled from WellHub's report, which surveyed over 5,000 full-time employees, was these individuals were asked how their overall health and well-being is. And those that had a wellness program in place compared to those who didn't indicated a much better ranking of their overall health across the board. And you can find on this graph that sorry, I'm blocking from my participant view here. You can see on this graph here that we're not just asking, this survey did not just ask general health and well-being, it asked about mental health, your physical health, breaking that out into fitness, nutrition, and sleep. And so all across the board, individuals with a wellness program showed to have a higher overall perception of their health and well-being. What's also interesting to note is the aging and different demographics that we're working with within our workforce right now. So now we have multiple generations within our workforce. And with that, the baby boomers are making their way out, and who's coming in now are our Gen Z. And within the next 5 years or so, Gen Z is going to account for 30% of the workforce. And the reason why that's significant is because Gen Z are the generation who tends to care about their health more than any of the generations. And so Gen Zers, as they are entering the workforce, are likely going to be expecting some sort of wellness program within their employer. So knowing that information, identifying that having a wellness program is going to help your retention. It's also going to help with recruiting tactics as well. So consider wellness now and programming around wellness initiatives being almost something expected, just like medical and vision benefits. It's truly going to be a benefit. And also not reflected within today's slides, but WellHub also asked a question that asked the same 5,000 individuals if their health has improved over the past year with having, and they differentiated those that had a wellness program compared to those who didn't have a wellness program. And those who did have a wellness program indicated that their health improved at a much higher rate than those that didn't have a wellness program. So again, just more information to validate that wellness within the workplace is needed and necessary. And it also aligns, I'm sure, with your messaging as an employer, which is we care about you and we want to prioritize your overall health and well-being. Within my time here at GBS, so I've been with GBS now for over 10 years, and it's been interesting to see how the wellness trends have evolved. So 10 years ago, we found that outcomes-based programs were very popular and had a lot of requests around those. So meaning typically biometric screenings with, let's say, a total cholesterol of less than 200 or a glucose of less than 100. There was really a big clinical driven effort. And while that's still important, we're finding more and more that trends are leading towards more a holistic approach. 10 years ago, there was still an interest in holistic approaches, but definitely over the last 5 years or so, I would say efforts are actually being taken and action is being taken to really encompass an overall holistic approach to your well-being program. So you can see on the slide here areas where investments and companies are decreasing. And I want to just call out that just because it's decreasing doesn't mean it's going away. Of course, employers are going to offer what's the best fit for their group, but as a whole, we are seeing across the board different areas decrease. One of which is on-site and on-demand fitness classes. So a reason for this could be due to more hybrid setting. Now that post COVID, a lot of organizations have a more hybrid setting. But I also want to call out that now more than ever, employers are recognizing that even fitness isn't a one size fits all program. We, over the past 10 years, have really taken pride in that our wellness resources are not intended for a one size fits all program. And employers are starting to recognize that among different dimensions within the well-being program. So specifically on-site fitness classes, maybe having an on-site yoga isn't going to attract all of your employees. Maybe some individuals are more into high intensity interval training or even jazzercise, or maybe it's simply just walking outside. Employers instead are shifting from that on-site to more reimbursements for healthy activities or gym reimbursements or something along those lines to, again, make sure they're addressing from a personal standpoint rather than an organizational. Another area where places where wellness focuses are decreasing are biometric screenings, but more specifically on-site biometric screenings. And again, this could be due to post-COVID, that hybrid setting. But I also want to call out that a huge reason, and especially in alignment with our team, we and others in the industry are recommending moving more towards physician visits and having your preventive screening or your annual wellness checkup through your physician. That way, you're really able to establish that relationship with your physician, and you can make sure you have a plan aligned to be up to date on your age and gender specific screenings. So, again, biometric screenings for on-site are decreasing a little, but we still have many clients implement biometric screenings on site. Free healthy food, again, more so just to the hybrid aspect, but continue to offer healthy food on site if you have that. I think too, with that, at least here in Utah, we have, I'll use the example of our Silicon Slopes. And I'd say in the late 2010s, having the tactic of free healthy food kept employees staying at the office for longer hours. But now employers are recognizing the importance of work-life balance. And so not just free healthy food, but just free food in general tends to be on the decline because we're recognizing, one, there's the more hybrid setting, but two, having the tactic to try to keep your employees in the office is maybe not as healthy as promoting that work-life balance. And then smoking and tobacco cessation programs. So 10 years ago, the national smoking rate, and this is for cigarettes specifically, not vaping, was about 18%, and now it's down to about 11%. So we're seeing a huge decline in cigarette smoking, but what I want to call out with that is we're starting to see quite an increase in substance use disorder and alcohol use. So it will be interesting to see how that evolves over the next handful of years. And our team has recognized the increase in these issues that employers are starting to face with their employees. So we've helped create toolkits. We have our behavioral health director who's really passionate about substance use disorder and providing resources to help with that. So again, although smoking and tobacco cessation programs are decreasing, other areas of substance use and alcohol use could be a trend that's increasing over the next number of years, which leads to probably no surprise areas that are increasing, one of which is mental health. And mental health has been a hot topic over the last handful of years, and the stigma continues to be eliminated or reduced, I should say, around mental health, which is fantastic. But the umbrella of what's considered under mental health is starting to expand as well. So, not just recognizing that it's depression and anxiety, but recognizing things like I just mentioned, substance use, alcohol use. Those are all going to fall under the mental health umbrella, and providing resources to address that are going to continue to rise. Employee rewards and recognition programs. So, going back to what I spoke to about the holistic approach, rewards and recognition programs really come down to that social component. So, rewards programs or recognition programs like an award co or a motivosity, employers are starting to invest in those because that provides a social component within the workforce that maybe you weren't able to get without a platform like that. So those are increasing due to that internal company morale and that social component. Gym membership reimbursements or activity reimbursements are on the rise as well. Just like I mentioned on the prior slide, finding that fitness and activity is going to be unique to each individual. So accommodating on that personal level. And then preventive health, age, gender specific screenings are on the rise and an increase. Mammograms, colonoscopies, annual wellness visits, PAP visits, all of those, we're really seeing a trend, not just the annual wellness visits, but those preventive ones as well, just to hopefully catch conditions or diseases at their early stages. And then another no surprise here are weight and disease management programs, more specifically weight management programs. GLP-1s have been on the rise in terms of popularity and in usage over the last 2 years or so. They've really spiked in interest, and many employers have been wondering what they need to do to help address this. Do they need to be covering it under their plan? Do they need to expand their offerings to support weight management programs or GLP-1 solutions to support their employees? And so our team is really taking the approach of providing resources to help employees with sustainable lifestyle changes rather than using GLP-1s as a band-aid solution for weight loss. And so kind of switching gears here into the GLP-1 discussion, you can see here listed on this graph how employers are handling the GLP-1 increase in interest. So 40% of employers within this specific survey are not considering covering GLP-1s for weight loss. Now, keep in mind, GLP-1s are covered for diabetes treatment, but this is specifically GLP-1s for weight loss. 16% aren't covering it, but they are considering it. And I feel like what's missing within this graph specifically is not necessarily considering, but exploring. Like, what do we even need to do? How do we need to address this as an employer? That's where I feel like this graph is a little missed, because when the GLP-1 craze started, all of GBS, my team, many of the brokers, account managers were flooded with questions of what they need to do. And so this, just keep in mind, I think these stats would be much higher if it came into, are you even exploring or wondering what options are out there? And then 39% of the employers surveyed covered a prior authorization and reauthorization requirements. And this is what we would strongly encourage if GLP-1s are going to be included within your plan design at all, or even if you're going to offer further support. Having those pre-auth will help with the eligible members, but then also having continual requirements for them to check in with a health coach or whatever that model may look like will help again with that sustainable weight loss rather than having it just as a band-aid solution. And then only 5% were covering with no special requirements. If you're curious outside of GLP-1s, what others are doing, what employers are doing when it comes to weight loss solutions outside of GLP-1s, 47% of the same employer groups that were surveyed have coverage for bariatric surgery, or surgery, sorry. 26% have coverage for medical nutrition therapy. And if you're here local in Utah, some of the carriers even offer nutrition services to all employees, regardless of health status or certain conditions. So if you have questions on that, feel free to reach out to me specifically on that. 23% use partner vendors such as a Personify Health to help with lifestyle behavior changes or nutrition specific. And then you can see the other percentages have a few others or not necessarily considering. And now switching gears to more pharmacy driven topics. So GLP-1s obviously have been a huge increase in spend among many employers with their pharmacy spend. But what else is happening with pharmacy spend? So this graph right here reflects all prescription drug costs or increases over since 2020, and then more specifically specialty drugs only. Now, I want to call out, although it looks like 2024 leveled out a little bit, I want you to consider that a few name brands ended up going to more not name brand anymore, like Humira, which used to be a very extremely costly specialty drug, now has generic options. So that could be a reason why our specialty decreased, but we are still seeing extremely high costs to specialty drugs. About 2 to 3% of the specialty drugs account for, or sorry, 2 to 3% of your population using specialty drugs are accounting for about 50% of your pharmacy spend. And so specialty drugs are not going anywhere. They are going to continue to rise. And again, going to a generic process is an extremely long time. If you dealt with that with Humira, you'll know that switching to a generic takes a long time. And as new specialty drugs come up, it's only going to be a cycle and a circle. And it's really unlikely for it to level out. So you may be wondering, well, what can I even do then if specialty drugs are just continuing to rise? If you are a fully insured company, your carrier, of course, is trying to find solutions to help with these specialty drugs. If you are a self-funded plan, you can dive into potentially our resources, which we have two options under our pharmacy team, one of which is our manufacturer assistance program. The other is our secure Canadian home delivery program. And these programs are intended to help manage those high cost specialty drugs. So our manufacturer assistance program, we have our GBS pharmacy team in-house that is identifying these different specialty drugs within your plan. And we help your members directly on applying for different programs, the manufacturing assistant programs, to get that decrease or that reduced cost for that specific specialty medication. And I have a few case studies here in a moment of how we've actually made an impact and helped with that. And then the second option is secure Canadian home delivery. And our team helps your members walk through to get signed up to receive their specialty medications through home delivery, through Canada. We have specialty Canadian sources, pharmacies that we partner with to receive those medications at a lower cost. So a case study right here in terms of total pharmacy savings, there was a group with about 2,500 employees enrolled on the plan. They had implemented GBS RX Advantage. By implementing our GBS RX Advantage program, the overall pharmacy claims were reduced by $1.3 million in just one given year. And that had an average savings of about $42 per employee per month. So a significant amount of money was spent, or excuse me, saved by implementing our GBS RX Advantage program. Through our patient assistance program, there was a specialty medication that doesn't have a generic version. And our team was able to help this member who was paying $55,000, or it was costing the plan $55,000 a month for this specific medication. And with the RX Advantage program, we were able to get them the exact same medication to address their exact same condition. And it saved the plan over $660,000 in this given year. And so that accounted for about $55,000 on a monthly basis. And last case study I have here through our Canadian mail order was a cancer therapy with the RX Advantage program. They were able to switch their pharmacy to our Canadian savings program and save an annual savings of about $120,000. So those amounts that I've referenced are significant amounts. And again, if you are a self-funded plan, this is really where you can dive into us and really make those changes to help save those dollars elsewhere. Because again, specialty drugs are just going to continue to rise, and we want to be able to help support you to manage those conditions, or sorry, those specialty drugs. So with that, I'm going to switch it over to Clay, but in short, just as a recap, wellness programs are becoming something that you should consider because our Gen Z demographic is going to come into the workforce, hoping and expecting you to be implementing those. And it also has an impact overall on the employees. They feel that they are healthier, they are making changes to their overall health, and it is providing a positive impact as an employer, but also from the employee perspective as well. So with that, Clay, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Carly, and great job. I just wanted to do a quick check here for everyone on the webinar. We're about halfway through the content and wanted to see, just remind everyone that the chat feature is available. See, we have Brooke, the wonderful Brooke, has posted a couple comments in there for us. One is the link to download the report, the annual report that we're talking about, that Carly and I are presenting segments of today. And then the CE codes are in there as well. But feel free to post any questions or make comments as we go along. Rebecca is watching that for us and will highlight the questions and comments as they come in. So, okay. As I jump into, yeah, please keep Brooke company in the chat. She's feeling lonely. Before we jump into the data and the content of my section, I wanted to share a brief story and an analogy. So, over 20 years ago, I bought my dream car. As a little kid, even, I was really, really into old classic cars, muscle cars. And so, yeah, about 20 plus years ago, I bought my dream car finally. It was a 1969 Chevy Camaro, and I loved that car. It was so fun to drive. It was beautiful and mean and fast and loud. It was, yeah, so fun to drive. But it was also a very simple machine. Just, an engine and a 4-speed transmission, and that was basically it. And as the driver, your experience was also pretty simple and straightforward. The dashboard just showed how much fuel you had in your tank and your speed. That was pretty much it. It just displayed information on what was happening right in the moment as you're driving the car. Now, I fast forward several decades, and the cars that we drive today are much more complex machines. But luckily, they come with really rich dashboards of information. All of these indicators and data points that help us understand what's happening and help us successfully operate the vehicle. And these data points help us understand current state, things like fuel level, temperature, speed, but they also help us be prepared for future events. Like they can predict the remaining life of the oil before we need an oil change. They can help us know that a tire is starting to lose pressure and it's going to go flat. They can help us know how far we can travel before we need to stop for gas again, how many miles, right? So very, very much more helpful information about how to operate the vehicle and what to expect in the future. So when we ignore these indicators, we run the risk of making some silly or costly errors. But when we pay attention to them, these rich dashboards of information, we get to make smarter decisions that help us in the moment and help us in the future. Okay, so if you can't tell where I'm going with this analogy, my point is your jobs are not simple. The jobs of today are not simple. And your jobs as, HR, total rewards, comp, ben, professionals are not simple. You operate them within complex organizations and in a complex business environment. And as you navigate the many ongoing decisions around benefits, compensation, and other rewards, and wellness programs, and so on, you need clear and reliable indicators to assist you. Gratefully, there are many indicators and trends, lots of data points that help us make smart decisions for today and the future. Carly went over a lot of those for those types of indicators for like wellness, pharmacy, and today in my section, we're gonna talk more about the labor market, indicators external to our organizations that can help us make smart decisions. So these are kind of different pieces that could go onto our dashboard to help us as we operate in our roles. Most of this data comes from, over the next several slides, comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics or the Atlanta Fed website. It's free, publicly available data. And just a quick call out about the data itself. We're going to be looking at the overall national figures because we have clients of all shapes and sizes and locations. But just know that you can go access this data yourself. You can cut the data by categories like industry, geography, company size, etc. Those kinds of things. So it's even more useful to you. Okay. So in this first one, we're going to look at some of the key labor market trends that I feel like everybody should be watching at least periodically. And you'll see unemployment in there, but then you'll see the other JOLTS data, as it's often called, the job openings, layoffs, turnovers, and turnover and severances. And unemployment on its own is a helpful indicator. It tells us a lot of things about the state of the labor market. But when we start layering on other elements, we get all these new types of insights. So let's look at unemployment first, this kind of purpley line. We can see that after this historic spike during the COVID pandemic, it came back down to really record low levels and has slowly started to creep back up, but still from a historical perspective is in a pretty low place. And it's kind of leveled off again the past many months. Okay, so that alone tells us some interesting things about the labor market. But when we add something like open jobs, we get some more insights. A couple of years ago, we can see that the separation between open jobs, like in 2022, between open jobs and unemployment was pretty significant. And if you did the math back then and looked at the number of job seekers per open job, there were essentially 2 open jobs for every 1 job seeker. And you can comment if you want, but do you remember what things were like then? Do you remember the types of like the feeling of the labor market and the way it was described? You probably recall there were phrases like the war on talent, things like that were being used a lot. There was so much pressure put on employers to offer significant rewards so that they would choose your open job over one of the many other open jobs that they could apply for. But as we look at what's happened over time, we can see the labor market is cooling. There's indicators of a cooling labor market. That war on talent has lessened to more of a casual, a little bit more casual feel. The balance of power, if you will, is not so focused on the candidate side or the employee side. It's shifting back a little bit. So now we're to a point where there's about one job seeker for every open job instead of 2 open jobs for every job seeker. Okay, but still from a historical perspective, it's still a decently competitive market, still a decent amount of demand on a per job basis. So what that means for us as employers is we can't fully just let off the gas or stop thinking about how well are we doing at attracting the right type of people to our organization or retaining the people that we want to keep. All right, so let's look at some other metrics. If we still look at open jobs that, oh, sorry, go back, Carly. There are a few more on this one. Um, if we look at job openings, that light blue line, and layoffs, that dark blue line at the bottom. This is pretty interesting. We saw when there was a lot of competition a couple of years ago and a lot of open jobs, layoffs were pretty low. They were at record low levels. And now as job openings go down quite a bit, right, what that tells us is employers are not hiring as much. And oftentimes when employers stop hiring or start hiring a lot less, typically that's paired with things like layoffs, right? Companies, we're not hiring anymore. We're freezing our hiring. We're going to lay off people, but we're not really seeing that. Some industries are seeing higher layoffs, but generally speaking, layoffs overall remain at record low levels. So employers are hiring less, but they're also trying to keep their people. So there's less talent available to fill jobs when our people leave, indicating to us retention remains a really important aspect. Okay, and if we let's look at maybe just one more. We've seen that unemployment is slowly rising, but is pretty stable. And we've seen open jobs are going down, but we can also see that the number of quits, right, people voluntarily leaving their job, that kind of orangey reddish line, is starting to go back down from the historical highs in 2022. So taken together, the insight we draw from that is employees are generally feeling less confident that they can leave their current job and find something better, which gives us an opportunity as an employer to focus on effective retention. We can keep sure employees might be a little bit worried about leaving, but if we can now focus on, let's help them feel motivated to stay and engaged when they stay. All right, so this slide looks like it's about inflation and wage growth, and it is. But what this really is about the interplay of these metrics and how they really indicate an employee's feelings. So let me explain what I mean. Anytime the orange line, the inflation line, is above the blue line of wage growth, how are employees feeling? Well, they're feeling stressed, strapped, worried that their pay increases are not keeping pace with their expenses. And in periods where the inverse is happening, where wage growth is higher than inflation, those are periods when employees are experiencing real wage growth, right? Where their wage growth is higher than inflation and things feel a little bit more manageable financially and a little bit less stressful. And you probably remember back in this period of 2021 when inflation was outpacing wage growth by a lot. You probably remember some of the conversations you were having with employees or with managers who had employees who were very concerned and were wondering why are our wage increases not higher? We're not keeping pace with inflation. Everything's too expensive, and so on and so on. And so watching these indicators helps us keep kind of our finger on the pulse of how are employees feeling generally. And if we look at the past year or so, we can see that wage growth rates have surpassed inflation rates. Again, inflation has gone down. Wage growth has been pretty stable. But employees are still feeling like they're catching up from this prolonged period of inflation being so high. Clay, going back to the last slide, I read an article this morning about the impact AI will have on layoffs in the next 1 to 5 years. Have you already seen this? What are you expecting to see? Would love to have you share your thoughts with this group. That's a great question, Carly. And I just got back from a national conference, a total rewards conference, and AI was brought up in every session over 3 days. And I think the consensus is, with a lot of things like AI that are so revolutionary, I think what's going to happen more than anything is there won't be fewer jobs. There will just be the need for re-skilled people, right? Because AI is going to open up jobs that we don't even know exist yet, right? There are things like you can go online right now and see jobs for like a prompt engineer, right? People who know how to prompt AI and get really good results out of it. So there are all sorts of jobs we don't even know exist yet. And there are all sorts of ways that existing jobs are going to drop certain aspects and new aspects will be added to those jobs that leverage AI technology. And so more than anything, I think we're going to see a huge wave of reskilling efforts. And a lot of the jobs won't necessarily go away. They'll just change. We'll be better at leveraging this technology. So, and obviously there are some jobs that can be and maybe replaced, but it's not like there's going to be a net decrease in jobs available to people. There'll just be new types of jobs. So pretty exciting stuff to see. All right, let's go to the next slide. So continuing on this, what's happening with wage growth out of the marketplace perspective, let's look at a breakdown of what's happening to people who stay in their jobs and people who switch jobs and their wage growth. Historically speaking, switching jobs was the surest path to getting a pay increase or the largest pay increase possible. But that's changing as of late. This data from the Atlanta Fed shows that job stayers, as of recent months, are now outpacing the job growth of job switchers. So it's a fraction of a percent. And so that shift is very subtle, but it's meaningful because just a few years ago, switching jobs meant that you could get a 50% larger pay increase by, rather than staying in your current job. So why this trend? Well, again, this tracks with what we saw in that first slide of the labor market metrics. The labor market is cooling, and employers aren't having to throw as much money out to get people to leave their current job and take one of their open jobs. So there's less competition there. The incentive to leave your job is getting smaller. In some cases, maybe even disappearing, because it might be better for a lot of employees now to stay in their current jobs in terms of wage growth. So this data on its own is very interesting. But what I want to point out is I think this is a unique time in the past many, many years where these metrics are being inversed. So it's an opportunity for us as employers to reframe this narrative around loyalty. right? So for so many years, there was this idea that, well, I got a job hop because if I don't, I'm not going to be earning the type of money that I could. And if we operate this in the right way as employers, we have the opportunity to change that narrative that it can pay to stay, but we've got to make that count for employees, right? So we can consider investing resources in things like clear career pathing programs and communication around career pathing, internal development opportunities so that people can advance in their career and their skills, reskilling opportunities related to that question that Carly asked about AI, and clear communication about your comp philosophy and your comp practices so people understand what they can expect when they stay. So it's an opportunity to build confidence in our employees through our actions that growth can happen without leaving. So this loyalty narrative can be a really powerful motivator if we give employees a compelling reason to stay. So pretty cool moment in history here. Okay, and to my last slide here, I'll just touch on these pretty quickly. This data comes from a survey of 5,000 HR leaders across the US, and it's published by payscale.com. So they asked a few questions. One was, what are your top priorities this year? So this is just kind of a quick take on what's on the mind of most HR leaders. Compensation came out at the top. And if you were to look over the past multiple years of publication, compensation has been at the top. And if you consider what the labor market has looked like over the past many years, it makes a lot of sense that compensation is so high on HR leaders' priority lists. And then you'll see retention right there behind. And again, that makes sense as well, given what's happening in the labor market. The most bang for your buck as an employer right now is going to be focusing on employee retention. And then we see what's happening in the second chart, the trends with salary increase budgets. For many, many years, we didn't even need to ask what people were going to spend because it was just going to be 3%, 3%, 3% every year. And then the past multiple years, that got shaken up quite a bit. You can see there 3.8%, almost 5%, 4.5%, and we've come back down. This year, most employers have reported that they are spending or plan to spend about 3.8% more than the previous year on salaries. And so what I want to say about that one is I've had quite a few conversations with clients and other HR professionals who are wondering, as these budgets go down, how do we focus on retention with less money? How do we get people to stay with less money? And I think there are a few things, some that I mentioned already on the previous slide, really focusing on clear communication about career pathing, opportunities, clear communication and transparency on your compensation practices, and so that employees know what to expect and they're not left in the dark. But also being really deliberate in how you allocate your salary budget. Do you have clear programs around how you're measuring performance and allocating that budget to your most impactful people appropriately, and so on. So really it comes down to the effective management, being super, super deliberate with every dollar that you have in that budget. Okay. And then lastly, this is just really interesting to see how significantly voluntary turnover has dropped over the past multiple years. So there are a lot of different, I've seen a lot of different figures for this, but from this survey's year-over-year count of thousands and thousands of employers, they're reporting over the past multiple years, we're down to a third of what it was back in 2021. So again, less movement of employees, voluntary movement expected, and an opportunity for us to really drive engagement and retention with the employees who stay. So as I wrap up my section here, I want to re-emphasize just two things. One, the value of having a dashboard, if you will, for your job, a dashboard of helpful metrics to help you successfully operate in your role, to understand what's happening around me and how do we need to respond to that. And then two, that the most compelling theme from all the data that we looked at is probably that the focus on retention is going to be the most bang for our buck this year. And then the other thing I would say is if you need help with any of those things or want to talk about these metrics and what they mean for your organization, please give me a call. I'd love to chat with you. Okay, we have reached the end of our content and we would love to hear any questions that you have. If you have any, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll hang out here for a minute and see.